Namaskar and welcome to our special coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Israel. In just about half an hour, the Prime Minister will make history as he addresses the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset. I'm Mark Lynn.
And I'm Gautam Roy. Prime Minister Modi's upcoming Knesset address marks a significant moment in India-Israel relations, highlighting decades of cooperation in defense, technology and trade, and setting the tone for future collaboration.
In fact, we'll bring you the Prime Minister's speech, followed by in-depth analysis with our panel of experts. We'll also explore what this visit means for India's strategic partnerships, how it could reshape regional dynamics, and what signals it sends to the global community.
Yes, do stay with us as we count down to this landmark address, a moment which underscores the growing bond between New Delhi and Jerusalem and the shared vision of innovation, security and prosperity.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Israel on Wednesday, the 25th of February, for a two-day state visit. Now, this marks his second visit to that country and a significant milestone in deepening the strategic partnership between India and Israel.
Upon touchdown at the Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv, Prime Minister Modi was warmly received by his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife Sarah Netanyahu. The arrival ceremony featured a formal guard of honor presented by the Israeli Defense Forces, underscoring the high-level protocol accorded to the visiting leader.
The event included an official welcome reception, with the two prime ministers exchanging greetings and participating in a brief tete-a-tete at the airport's lounge shortly afterward. Upon landing in Israel, the Prime Minister tweeted, or he posted on X, and I quote, "Landed in Israel, I am extremely honored to be received by Prime Minister Netanyahu and Mrs. Netanyahu at the airport. I look forward to engaging in bilateral discussions and fruitful outcomes that strengthen the India-Israel friendship."
And responding to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's social media post, his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu said, and I quote, "It's a great honor to welcome you to Israel, Prime Minister Modi. And aapka swagat hai, that is, you're most welcome," is also what he wrote in Hindi.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi was warmly welcomed by around 250 members of the Indian diaspora shortly after his arrival in Israel. The 18-minute community reception featured a series of vibrant performances, a classical dance trio, Kathak, Kuchipudi, Odissi, Kerala's traditional Tiruvathira by caregivers, a stirring I Love My India by the inclusive Shalva Band, led by visually challenged vocalist Dina Samte, Israeli folk dance Hava Nagila, and this is with Bollywood fusion and a graceful Rajasthani Ghumar.
Prime Minister Modi also interacted with No India Program youth, posed for photos with the performers, and also greeted professionals, students and Indian origin Jews lining up to get a glimpse of him, highlighting deep people-to-people ties, strengthening India-Israel relations. As you can see, as happens when Prime Minister Modi travels to any foreign land, the Indian diaspora ever present, ever eager to meet and greet him. And this time around, here you also see members of the performers, that is also from the Israeli community.
Well, and we are joined by Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, former senior diplomat, and Dr. Samuel Rajiv, research fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis. To put into context, the Prime Minister's visit to Israel and his speech, which will come in a short while at the Knesset.
Yes, if I could come to you, Ambassador Wadhwa, first, just try to bring to the audience, our viewers, the significance of this moment. Prime Minister Modi will be the first Indian Prime Minister to address the Israeli Parliament.
Yes, I think that's a very important address. In fact, this visit itself is a very consequential visit, as I would term it, because although a visit has taken place by the Prime Minister to Israel in 2017, given what is happening around the world today, and especially in West Asia, the heightened military technological change and a global system which is under strain and quite unpredictable at the moment, I think his address would be listened to with a lot of attention, not only in Israel and India, but also in the region and around the world. I think it's important, to give a few messages for the Prime Minister during this address. One is, of course, to reaffirm our defense and security cooperation amongst the evolving threats to the Parliament, to the Israeli Parliament, and also to talk about the economic and technological partnerships which we can align together with for future growth, and then talk about continuity and reliability in India's strategic relationships. Also, convey that we have the capacity to engage with Israel while maintaining a balance across West Asia. So all these elements will have to go into this speech, which will have to be crafted quite deliberately and quite carefully.
To give us a little background, Dr. Rajiv, how has defense cooperation between India and Israel evolved, over the 30 years that we've had relations with Israel?
Yes, so the defense cooperation between the two countries has been one of the strongest pillars of the relationship. It is a fact that even prior to the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1992, Israel helped us in moments of crisis for us, and it continued subsequently also. For instance, in the 1965 war, the 1971 war, Israel supplied ammunition and many other equipment. Some of the equipment were also used in 1999 Kargil war. The equipment they supplied, for instance, the 160 mm ammunition they supplied during the 71 wars was used in 1999 Kargil war also. So in Kargil war, obviously we are all aware of the massive help that we received from them in terms of the smart ammunitions that equipped our fighter jets that were effectively to cover enemy positions. And this defense cooperation continued and got strengthened over the years, especially when we bought the AWACS from them, a massive $1 billion deal, the 3 AWACS, the Falcon AWACS, and subsequently a whole range of equipment from pistols to light machine guns to sensors to UAVs, and a whole range of equipment that we got from them. And this is more than double in the past decade from 2014 onwards. If you look at CIPRI data, for instance, India accounted for about 25% of Israel's arms exports from 2004 to 2014. From 2014 onwards, 2025, India accounted for almost 40% of Israel's arms export. So there's a 40% jump in Israel's arms exports to India during this period, just because of our modernization requirements and because of security requirements.
And has India also been of help to Israel in the security and the wider strategic domain, not in proportionate manner, but to any extent?
Yes, I mean it's a fact that Israel, vouches with for its relationship with India, just because of the fact that India is one of the biggest regional powers in the, it's one of the biggest democracy in the world, and the Prime Minister's address to the Knesset testifies to that. And it is also a fact that we have some reports mentioned, we have also given them some equipment in recent times also. So, and there's a lot of joint ventures which mutually beneficial to both the countries. For instance, the MRSAM, the medium-range surface-to-air missiles, long-range surface-to-air missiles. These are joint venture products which are being used both by the Indian armed forces as well as the Israeli armed forces. So there's a mutual benefit to both countries.
Ambassador Wadhwa, how significant has intelligence sharing been between the two countries, in this strategic partnership?
Yes, I think so. There is a lot of emphasis on intelligence sharing in the Security Cooperation Pact that we have with Israel, and I think during this visit we are set to see a new version, perhaps, of that expanded Security Cooperation Pact, which will reflect the evolving geopolitical dynamics in our region and in that region. This renewal will reinforce intelligence sharing and joint exercises, technology exchanges, and institutional cooperation that we both have. But that is important because beyond hardware, both sides are collaborating quite closely on counterterrorism strategies and in cybersecurity and strategic intelligence, which are all areas of mutual concern because we have a volatile neighborhood, both of us, and that is obviously important for both sides.
Right. And if we extend this to the issue further of counter-terrorism, Professor Rajiv, what do you make of the prospects of how this can be sharpened further, particularly when it comes to countering the financing of terrorism and illicit associated activities with it is concerned? Because I believe in this trip, this could be one of the focuses as well in terms of financial cooperation and addressing gaps in that domain.
Yes, so India has taken many steps with many countries bilaterally. It has bilateral agreements in place with Israel also on these and related aspects. Counterterrorism, obviously, again one of the strongest pillars of the relationship. So the Israeli ambassador ahead of the Prime Minister's visit has said they're going to enhance and further solidify some of these partnerships. We are not sure what the contours of those solidified partnerships will look like, but obviously they're going to strengthen them. The point that you mentioned, the financial aspects of countering terrorism. So Israel and India will obviously further enhance the partnership in this on these aspects. I believe the terminology itself will be changed. We are strategic partners, both of us. When Prime Minister Modi went in 2017, we called the relationship a strategic partnership. I understand now they're going to term it, they're going to use a better term, perhaps a special strategic partnership, like we have just enhanced our partnership with countries like France. So we're going to see something similar with Israel also today or tomorrow.
Dr. Rajiv, while we stick to the security domain, Israel is famous for the Iron Dome, and India, of course, is interested now in a lot of missile technology and defense systems that we are calling the Sudarshan Chakra, some Durga 2, I think. These are the two aspects. To what extent, is cooperation in this field moving forward?
Yes. So Israel has been an important source of niche equipment for us. The sensors, the missiles, and the radar systems, surveillance systems. So the niche technology that we are developing, Israeli equipment is intended to be an essential part of that. Also, the Sudarshan Chakra. The reports note that the Barak missile system will be an important part of that, and we are developing sort of a Tuz Azimuth, air defense architecture. So. And obviously, we are following an Atmanirbhar, self-reliant defense policy to the extent that Israeli companies can plug into the architecture and help us, enhance our capabilities. They're most welcome to do that.
In fact, Mission Sudarshan Chakra, which is supposed to be completed by 2035, is supposed to be AI enabled as well. So you feel that that is a capability that Israel could perhaps share with us?
Absolutely. There are some reports which mention that the Israelis are not just going to, share the technology, but they are going to transfer the technology also. So it remains to be seen. Generally, these technologies are closely guarded. But given the fact that Israel is an important strategic partner, and Israel views India as one of its most important strategic partnerships after the Americans, they have said that publicly, India, the US and the India are the two most important strategic partners. So nothing is impossible to achieve, and we are looking for technology sharing, and we want our defense industry also to be involved in this. Hopefully going forward we're going to see some forward movement.
Ambassador Badwa, so put that into diplomatic context for us, the importance or the implications of India-Israel relations in the regional security of South Asia and also of West Asia.
Yes, again, as I said earlier, I think this is a very closely watched visit in our region as well as in the region of West Asia, because India has been increasing its ties with a number of countries in the Gulf, for instance, in recent years. In fact, we have a very strong relationship with countries like the UAE, with Oman, with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, all of them. Even in West Asia, if you look at the relationship with Egypt, it's quite strong. They're all multifaceted agreements and cooperation agreements that have been signed with these countries. So I think the key is to balance this relationship in the context of what is happening today in the region. We see a volatile situation as far as Iran is concerned. Israel is a key player as far as that sector of the GCC and the Gulf is concerned, because there are other countries in the GCC who are most concerned about what's happening and how it will affect their own security. And therefore, India's stance on how it pronounces itself, especially in Prime Minister Modi's address to the Knesset, will be an important factor. I think India will be balancing its views quite clearly. It will plug for diplomacy as the first step and the ultimate solution to the region. And definitely, it is in India's interest if peace prevails and there is no conflict. So it remains to be seen how that it pans out. But having said that, I think we also need to look at what's been happening in our own region in South Asia, where we had a conflict between India and Pakistan, a brief one at that, but then we saw that there was active involvement of Chinese technology and satellite imaging, etc., which means that India needs to counter that in many ways. And one of the ways in which India can counter that is something we've just talked about, which is the Sudarshan Chakra and the Iron Dome, and also having our own capability of laser defense and high precision weapons. So expanding our cooperation into the cutting edge areas which are previously restricted, including future laser weapons and long range strike capabilities, will become very important.
And Ambassador Badwa, if we look at how Benjamin Netanyahu himself phrased it in terms of his country's relationship with India, he talked about other countries as well, because he talked about building a hexagonal alliance which includes nations within the Gulf, outside it as well, extending to Asia and also the Mediterranean. He specifically named Cyprus and Greece as well. What do you think would be the Indian perspective on something like this? Because India does not use the term alliance that easily. It prefers friendship or partnership, doesn't it?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think the terminology matters a lot as far as India is concerned. And although India will definitely work together with countries that have been named by Benjamin Netanyahu in his hexagon of countries as an alliance, I think India will definitely pay attention to that. But terming it in those terms is not the language that India prefers to use. Secondly, of course, we have to be mindful of the fact that there the lingering Palestinian question, on which India has not pronounced itself any differently from it used to be before. The cooperation with Israel has grown. The situation on the ground in Gaza, etc., has changed, and it is also changing in the West Bank. So India has to be mindful of what is happening on the ground, and while expanding its cooperation with Israel, it will have to also pronounce itself on a settlement of that question, which is its traditional stance.
Dr. Rajiv, if you can comment on that now, how does India balance its relations, with the other important countries in West Asia, which are largely opposed to Israel?
Yes, I think it's a fact that the fault lines in the region are drawn, and some of the important countries in the region are actually aligned with Israel in terms of geopolitically. If you look at the Saudi interests, or Saudi and other countries, the UAE, the Abraham Accord countries, so all of them are aligned with Israel and the American interests. And our interests are also mostly aligned with these countries because of very solid reasons, because of our diaspora, millions of people in these countries, because of our civilizational links with these countries. So I think our relationship has been strengthened with this group of countries in the past years. If you look at the I2U2 grouping, which was established some years ago, the US, the Israelis and the UAE. It's a fact that we have.
But specifically on the Gaza question.
Yeah. So if you look at it, we have had a very principled stand on the Gaza question. We have condemned the terrorist attacks, and we have condemned the loss of lives. Also, we have, in fact, explicitly stated that civilian casualties, are a no-go in terms of the use of force and etc. And we have made these statements in the past 2 years, and we continue to insist that the Palestinian state has to be formed. We continue to insist on a support for a two-state solution. We continue to support the Palestinians in the developmental needs, and we welcome the recent developments, the ceasefire and etc. that have taken place. We hope that there will be some forward movement and peace will return to the region. Obviously, the two-state solution looks difficult as of now, but at the UN also, and the UN, the resolution that have been passed, we've supported the resolutions that call for a two-state solution. So multilaterally and bilaterally, we have continued to maintain our principled position on the Palestinian issue and on the Gaza issue.
Right, Ambassador Wada, if we look at from our traditional position that Dr. Rajiv has mentioned to how things have been moving in terms of settling the Gaza conflict beyond the ceasefire. There's a board of peace that Donald Trump convened, invited India as well. It met, and India was there as an observer. It's not signed down to the process, certainly not contributing the $1 billion buy-in that has been set by Donald Trump. So where do you think India wishes this process to really go?
So look, as far as the Board of Peace is concerned, India was part of the UN resolution on this question because that was a third way out which was being proposed. And of course, the Board of Peace resolution which set it up was specifically about setting up this board with reference to the Gaza question. Later on, we've seen that in the charter of this Board of Peace, the scope has been expanded. And also, not only the scope has been expanded, but there are other issues that have been brought into the charter. The countries who are now supporting the Board of Peace and are full members are not consequential countries, I would say. And the hesitation comes from the fact that nobody is very sure how it's going to function and how it's going to work at the moment. Many countries are therefore waiting and watching. India is in that category as well. But I think, quite frankly, if the Board of Peace is not confined to the question for which it was set up, then there will be doubts which will creep in, in the world community in general. We have the stance of the European Union already in front of us, and these are the main questions that they have as well. So that's one issue. Now, how the border peace will work to solve the Gaza question, it can only work if the interests of the Palestinians are taken into account. At the moment, the way things are moving, and in terms of what Israeli policies have been in the West Bank, obviously don't point to a direction in which there will be a satisfactory solution for the Palestinians. So we have to have a situation where both sides are satisfied with how it is functioning. Of course, the ceasefire is there, and so the killings have stopped, and that is a plus. But later on, if things continue in this manner, and if the Palestinians are being pushed out of areas that were traditionally those in which they were living, then we can have consequences and we can have complications going forward. So we still have to wait and watch how this process will unfold.
Ambassador Wadhwa, if we could move away from the geopolitics for a moment and look at the bilateral relationship, to what extent can the two countries cooperate in the area of startups? I mean, there's a vibrant startup culture in both countries. One is seen as a startup nation. The other, of course, we have a startup ecosystem that's very vibrant, and also in the new areas.
Third largest in the world.
Yeah, in the areas of AI and cybersecurity and things like that.
I think you're absolutely right, because the real story of the India-Israeli collaboration is in the innovation-driven collaboration, because India and Israel have institutionalized cooperation through joint R&D mechanisms. They have innovation funds. There is a startup partnership, particularly in 4 prominent areas. One is artificial intelligence and deep tech. Second is water management and desalinization, in which Israel is quite strong. Third is agricultural technology, and you've seen the effects of the drip irrigation projects that Israel has conducted in India. And fourth is the cybersecurity and digital health. The last one in particular will be transformative, because that's something that India has not been able to implement on the ground as yet, which the Israelis have done to a large extent in their own country. And I think, if we have an India-Israel free trade agreement, so that would significantly expand not only our trade, but also our digital commerce and technology partnerships. So that would integrate Israeli innovation more deeply into India's scale. So I would say that that's a very important aspect of this relationship.
Right. And Dr. Rajiv, does this partnership also extend to an area where the human race also has to look at the emerging scenario of a future without oil, because that is where we then get into the domain of, or at least, without fossil fuels in general, because that's where the world wants to move to, because that's where you go into renewable energy and other sources of energy.
Yes, Israeli companies are very strong in this, as indeed our own companies are, we have very ambitious targets to achieve these goals. So obviously there will be some, meeting together of minds. Indian companies have invested in Israeli startups. The Israeli companies have also invested in some Indian renewable, green energy companies. So this movement, developments will pick up momentum. So going forward, and because the Israelis are obviously one of the leaders in this and related fields, spanning the water, green energy spectrum.
So, Dr. Rajiv, also in terms of expected investments into our country, we are, of course, a country that requires a huge investment in infrastructure. We're looking also, apart from Atmanirbharta, there is technology that I guess even the Japanese, the Israelis, all these are good at these things. To what extent can collaboration take place in the infrastructure space?
Yes, so I think not just bilaterally, I think we're also trying to do it with involvement of third countries. The promise of the I2U2 was that India has the scale, the trained resources and the manpower. Israel will bring in the technology, and the financing part of it will be brought by countries like the UAE. So there are some projects in progress. I think on similar scale, these could be rather scaled up, for instance. I think these are aspects that we could see some forward movement. Yes.
And Ambassador Badwa, the same could be said about MSMEs as well, because that's another area where India expects a lot of activity to be taking place in terms of collaboration with different countries, and Israel is not excluded.
Yes, Israel is also quite keen that the MSME cooperation expands, and that is why the bilateral FTA becomes important. In fact, in the terms of reference that we have agreed upon, MSMEs feature very prominently in that, and that's because there is a lot of innovation taking place in Israel in the small and medium enterprises, which then requires scaling up, and India will provide that scale. So if we can reach that level of industrial cooperation across emerging tech sectors, then I think both countries will benefit a lot, and Israel will also gain some market access in the process. Now, that is required, of course, that we must have a proper mobility framework in place. So that is why in this visit there would be some amount of focus also on expanding our mobility framework for skilled workers, for students, and for professionals, because that is going to prepare the ground for the eventual FTA and its implementation. And if we can start that now and also set up some steering committees, for example, for economy, for technology, and for our strategic dialogue going forward, then that's going to help in all these fields.
Ambassador Badwa, what lessons can India learn from Israel's water technologies? I mean, you did mention drip irrigation, which has been successfully used. What about desalination? To what extent can it be replicated in India?
So India, of course, can replicate desalinization quite rapidly, and as part of the I2U2 collaboration, we looked at a desalinization project, but that was looked upon in the context of UAE. And that is because while India has a focus on desalinization plants now, but that's only happened over the past few years. It's expensive to actually resort to those kind of technologies when others are much cheaper. In the context of the UAE, it becomes more important because that's one country that does not have other kinds of means and resources to do so. So it was a priority project for UAE, whereas for us it was a priority project in the electricity generation area, and also in terms of horticulture and drip irrigation. So we've chosen to do those projects, and the UAE chose to do the desalinization project. But of course, it can be replicated across all the countries, and India would be next. I'm sure when this process moves forward.
Right. Another area where India and Israel have had a collaboration and cooperation is space, Dr. Rajiv. Do you feel that there is ample room still for expanding this further, particularly when the private sector in the space sector in India is now coming into its own gradually?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we should note that we have launched Israeli satellites also, and we have launched satellites which have Israeli components. This synthetic aperture radar satellites, the Texar satellites, is the Israeli satellite we have launched. The RESAT that had the Israeli component. So when Prime Minister went in 2017, three of the significant agreements related to the space sector. So space cooperation has continued, and
there's something about an atomic clock as well.
Yes, atomic clocks in low energy orbit, links and etc. And I think we should expect some more developments on this field, especially given that there's a lot of focus on innovation. And the larger point that I want to bring out is that Israelis are pursuing this innovation partnership with India. It's very significant, given the fact that a few years ago, 10 years ago, they termed the partnership with China as a comprehensive innovation partnership cooperation. But that did not go forward because of opposition from countries like the Americans.
Dr. Rajiv, we are getting in some visuals that have come in from Tel Aviv. Prime Minister, I think, has arrived actually at the Knesset.
That's the Israeli parliament. You can see Benjamin Netanyahu, his counterpart, and his wife, Sarah Netanyahu, greeting the Prime Minister. There's a red carpet laid out. The Prime Minister would very soon be addressing the Israeli parliament.
So, Dr. Rajiv, can you tell us a little bit about the Knesset? I think they have only about 120 seats. It's a, give us a little bit of a background as to what this parliament is all about and their system of democracy compared to ours.
Yes, so the Israeli parliament, as you mentioned, is the Knesset. It's very representative of the country. It's a diverse country. It's a Jewish democracy, people say. But the fact is, they haven't had a majority government, in the past many decades. It's always been a coalition government. That's because many parties, many groups are represented in the Knesset, and it's always been
because the representation system.
Yes, and also and the political system has the framework has changed in the past many decades, and there's a lot of strong leadership now. And Prime Minister Netanyahu, obviously at the head of the government for multiple times, longest serving prime ministers of the country. And they're going to have elections in a couple of months, I think in October. So there is also significant October this year. So and the fact that the is addressing the Knesset is very significant, given the fact that many Israeli analysts and even the Prime Minister has said this. The Prime Minister Netanyahu has said this. Israel and India are the only two democracies from the Mediterranean to the Bay of Bengal. So they're very proud of this, categorization. So I think this Prime Minister's address is going to reinforce that aspect of the relationship even further.
Right. Ambassador Bhadwa, if I could ask you, why do nations accord this sort of honor to leaders of other countries? Because I think this will be the 19th time that Prime Minister Modi will be addressing the House, the elected House of any country around the world. Twice he's done that in the US Congress as well.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note here that these kind of addresses are not normal. This is an honor which is given to only a few selected leaders. And the fact that the Prime Minister, as you mentioned, has addressed parliaments around the world on so many occasions is, actually a tribute to him and to India. Because I would say that it's a matter of pride that the Knesset in this case and the parliaments actually want to listen to a leader address them, which arises out of a strong sense of partnership with that country. And therefore, in the Israeli context, of course, it becomes even more important. As we know, there is a political crisis in Israel at the moment where, the Chief Justice, for example, wants to be invited and he is not coming, so the opposition wanted to boycott it. I don't know whether that issue has been resolved. But even so, I think the fact that the administration is very keen that this address takes place, speaks volumes for the respect that they have for the Prime Minister and the friendship that the two Prime Ministers enjoy.
So, in fact, the Knesset is actually in Jerusalem. It is not in Tel Aviv. It's in Jivat Ram, which is in Jerusalem. And tell us a little bit also, Ambassador Bhadwa, about people-to-people links. At the end of the day, any relationship that has to be taken forward has to be taken forward at the people-to-people level. What is the scope really of closer ties between or cultural ties between India and the Jewish nation?
So, in the community, the Indian diaspora in Israel consists of a lot of members of the Jewish community who've actually gone and settled there. In fact, when I was visiting Israel with the president, a number of them especially had a meeting with the president and also related the long history and the ties that their families had with Israel. So these are very important links that we have with Israel. Israeli Jews, of course, have gone and settled across the world, but in terms of reverse migration, reverse migration is also very important.
Right. Now, Dr. Rajiv, in terms of this visit, should it also be seen as an attempt to take certain things which had attained higher levels? And since Mark mentioned people to people, let's for instance say tourism, apart from that there's trade as well, which at one time it crossed, it was almost, it was $10.7 billion in 21-22, I think. It has come down in recent times to $3.75 billion in the last financial year. So do you see this visit in that context as well, to revive things, after this conflict in Gaza that impacted a lot of things where Israel is concerned, is now well, no longer there in terms of there being a ceasefire and a peace process underway?
Yes, you're absolutely right. There's a huge symbolism associated with this, with Prime Minister's address. As Ambassador Wada pointed out, this is not a it's everyday occurrence, a rare occurrence. It's a rare honor that's bestowed upon the Prime Minister. It's the temple of democracy for Israel, the Knesset, and it reinforces the people-to-people links between the two countries. As you pointed out, massive tourism, linkages between the two countries. A lot of Israeli tourists come here after their compulsory army service. It's a first port of call for them. So they develop affinities with Indian culture, with Indian food, with Indian people, with Indian geographies. So they are more familiar with parts of India perhaps than any other geography in the world. And I think this visit reinforces the fact that people to people are at the center of the relationship, and this will be further strengthened. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the Jewish community in India. It's about 10,000 strong,
Yes.
Largely in the south and Maharashtra. To what extent, are they helping in this relationship?
They're an important part of the relationship. They've had very historical links. They've been very important members of the Indian society historically. They've contributed a lot to the Indian culture, to science, to the movies, to sports. So there's a whole range of contributions, just like Indians in Israel have contributed to the life there in Israel. They're a vibrant part of the Israeli society. A lot of people have migrated from Kerala, from Maharashtra, from the northeast also now. They're part of the Israeli armed forces. They are very active members of the Israeli society. They're part of the armed forces also. They contribute to Israeli security also. So just like the Indian diaspora here in Israel, rather the Jewish citizens of India who trace their origin and lineage to Israel and to Judaism have been very important contributors to the Indian society.
Right, and now very soon we'll see Prime Minister Modi addressing the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, a rare honor which has been accorded to him in this visit, the first Indian Prime Minister to do so. Although a President of India has done that in the past, Mark, but this is something quite remarkable, the kind of honor that has been accorded, and he will be, of course, letting not just Israel know what India feels about a lot of issues which are of import to the people of Israel, but to the world as well from this important stage. Ambassador Wada, we were talking about that, the emphasis on peace, India has always laid that, and that perhaps applies not only to the context of Gaza and the region, but also what's been happening with the evolving situation related to Iran.
Absolutely. This whole region is geopolitically extremely important for India, and our ties with Iran are also quite important given the fact that for many years now, India has been trying to set up a connectivity corridor with Iran and Russia, and that is the International North-South Transport Corridor. And of course, later on, many countries of the Caspian and beyond joined this particular project. But the key to this whole connectivity lies in India's investments in the port of Chabahar. And of course, Iran looks up to India to develop that project financially. Given the current situation, the sanctions from the United States on Iran, the project has been put on hold. India would like to increase its exports to the Central Asian economies, as also to have a connectivity project with ongoing with Afghanistan, because otherwise it's very difficult to export our projects to this region on a much larger scale. So air connectivity works, but only to a certain extent, only for perishable goods, but not for the bulk goods. And therefore, that project becomes very important. And that's why India would like to see that the region returns to normalcy as quickly as possible, and that a conflict does not happen, because it's not just the trade and economic aspect of connectivity, but it's also the effect that it will have on the large Indian diaspora in the region, and the displacements that it will cause to them, and consequently the effect it can have on the Indian economy.
Ambassador Badwa, also ever since India had been president of the G20, and India has now, significantly changed the narrative in a sense as a voice of the global South. To what extent is, a vision for the future likely to be something that the Prime Minister will be talking about in his address?
So, Prime Minister, of course, will be touching upon that aspect, I'm sure, because India is now going to be faced with a situation where we have the BRICS, conference which is coming up, the summit, and in that context, he will take forward the stand of India to represent the voice of the global South. As far as the G20 is concerned, we've actually tried quite hard to bring about an agenda of equitable cooperation around the world, and also to make sure that issues like debt in Africa and otherwise around the world are also addressed. The conflicts which have been raging for the past 4 years, starting with Ukraine, have caused a lot of disruptions as far as supply chains are concerned, prices of fuel and fertilizer are concerned. So all those issues have been raised by India in the past, but the presidency now passes on to the United States, where we'll probably see a different kind of focus in that context of G20. So therefore, the BRICS remains an important forum. And in the interim, wherever the Prime Minister goes, for example, today in this address to the Knesset, I think that's another issue that he would like to raise, especially because he's also addressing perhaps the whole issue of the Gaza conflict.
Right. Normally, Dr. Rajiv, when we see Prime Minister Modi addressing international audiences, he sort of pitches for India, especially where investment and collaboration and taking progress forward, mutual progress forward is concerned. But the Knesset is a different sort of a forum. It's where he speaks to Israeli lawmakers and people in decision-making capacity. So, how would he then sort of tailor his submission to them to again reflect upon how and what kind of partners India and Israel are, and what can they be, and how can they walk together in a set of challenging geopolitical scenario?
Yes, I think the Prime Minister will reinforce the fact that Israel is one of India's most important strategic partners. They have been with us in our period of trouble. When we required them the most, they helped us. And the Israelis are also acknowledge the fact that the Indian government has helped them when they needed them the most. And I think especially during this period of geopolitical uncertainties in the aftermath of the Gaza conflict, the fact that the Prime Minister chose to go there physically and meet them and address the Knesset, it's a very important symbolic gesture, reinforcing the strength of the partnership, reinforcing the strength of the strategic partnership, the people-to-people links, and the democratic framework of engagement that will obviously be further strengthened in the aftermath of the Prime Minister's address.
Right. Indeed, and we did see Prime Minister also laying a wreath a little earlier. He was scheduled to visit the Yad Vashem Holocaust Remembrance Center. We're not sure whether that was the incident, but he did lay a wreath, we did see. Obviously, that also may be significant of the current conflict that took place and the loss of lives.
Yes, I think most world leaders, make it a point to, go to Yad Vashem, a very solemn.
Prime Minister was there in 2017 as well when he went there the first time.
Yes, absolutely, you're right. So, and it's very, it's in acknowledging the fact that the Holocaust happened, and in expressing solidarity and goodwill with the Israelis for the fact that they've risen from there and they've become massively successful as a nation, as a people. They're an example to most of the other countries in the world, given the fact that they've achieved stupendous achievements. For instance, in the water sector, for instance, half of the country is a desert, but they are now water sufficient now. So because of the use of technology, and they've transferred sharing these technologies with their friends and strategic partners. So I think there's a huge symbolism to the Prime Minister going to Yad Vashem and to his address to the Knesset.
Right, Mark, I'm not sure if you mentioned this earlier, but of course Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife Sarah are right next to Prime Minister Modi to his right, and on his left is the Speaker of the Knesset, Amir Ohana. Right. He's been heading the Knesset, or taking the Knesset's work forward as its Speaker since 2022, and is part of the same political party as Benjamin Netanyahu, which is the Likud party.
Indeed, and we can see that they are leading the Prime Minister forward towards, the seat of the Israeli Parliament. We continue to stay with these visuals and put them into context for you. This is all part of the official ceremony that is part of the Prime Minister's address to the Knesset. We'll continue to stay with these visuals until the Prime Minister is ready to address the Knesset. But in the meantime, our guests are with us in the studio, putting India-Israel relations into a deeper and larger context. Ambassador Wadhwa, if we come back to the point of people-to-people ties, and we were just looking at cultural exchanges, but there is, after all, with technology continuing to increase, the sharing of technology and the ability of probably joint development and things like that, there would be a possibility of, greater diaspora connect, or more people moving into Israel in the course of time.
Yes, absolutely. So, already the diaspora is quite strong in Israel. It's about 40,000 people, 40 to 45,000 people. They've been growing over the years. They've been growing because of the fact that Israel has been encouraging migration. And in fact, now there is also the possibility of another 10,000 people who are from the northeast of India, who trace their ancestry, of course, to the triangle between India and Myanmar and Bangladesh, and they will be the ones who can trace their ancestry back to Israel as well. So they've been accepted as the next wave of immigration from India into Israel. So we will see a number of them also going there. Many of them are into are caregivers at the moment in Israel. That's one of the professions that has taken off as far as India is concerned into Israel. Part of the mobility agreement that India and Israel have signed. And going forward, I think the presence of increased amount of diaspora from India in Israel definitely will affect the bilateral relationship as well. I would also like to add here that in terms of some of our major cities, if you look back into history, there have been Armenian settlements and Armenian Jews, and similarly there have been Jewish settlements and Jewish structures which have been built and now remain as remnants of that era. India has done well to actually preserve them and also to make sure that these are on the tourist map. Israel appreciates that a lot, and I think it's an important connection again because that's something to do with our shared history of the past. And in the modern day times, it can serve as an important link as well. As far as the youth are concerned, we've seen an increased number of Israeli tourists coming into India because many of them come for R&R after a tough military service. Conscription is very important as far as Israel is concerned, as we know the situation there. And therefore, it's important for the youth to take off on a vacation sometime. And our Himachal and Uttarakhand, for example, have seen an influx of tourists. Earlier, it used to be places like Goa and Pune and down south in Kerala. So that is something which will keep happening as we come closer together. And I'm sure when the mobility aspects are considered for strengthening, we will see increased number of tourists from both sides to each other's countries.
Right. Dr. Rajiv, I'd like you to speak to the images in terms of the importance of Prime Minister Modi's, not only his visit, but coming to the Knesset to address it as well. What does it mean for Israel and for Benjamin Netanyahu, showcasing the visit of a leader of the stature of Prime Minister Modi, who leads a country of 1.4 billion people. It's a democracy, the world's largest democracy, a pluralistic society as well.
Yes, so I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is on record stating that Prime Minister Modi is very popular globally. He's one of the most popular leaders globally, and the Prime Minister has said that the fact that Prime Minister Modi is coming to Israel at this time is very significant for them. He has appreciated the gesture, in glowing terms.